Back in 2020, I covered The Last of Us Part 2 right here on this very channel, but it's a review that I grow more and more restless with as it continues to age. The problem is that it was written from a place of discontent. After managing to avoid all the pre-release spoilers, I experienced the disappointing direction the team had chosen to go in and wrote my review from a bitter place. The video was published and life went on, but key scenes and moments lingered in my mind, making me question if I had gotten things right. I returned to the title 2 more times in 2020 and in 2021, and realized that, yeah, I was pretty wrong about this game. For me, it's hard to balance a 45-hour work week with a social life and having a YouTube channel while also maintaining proper self-care. Time as a resource is already stretched so thin, making it hard to do multiple playthroughs of a game before finalizing my thoughts. It's happened a few times for me here on the channel, most recently with the Lies of P video, but I've always felt that way about my Last of Us Part 2 video because, quite honestly, this game is one of my top 10 favorites of all time right now. Getting a chance to revisit here in the remastered version affords me the opportunity to right the wrongs, but I don't want that to become the sole focus of this video. I don't really want to go into specifics, but what I do want to say is that The Last of Us Part 2 had a bold vision and delivered on it really well, even if it didn't quite align with the expectations that its players had. When you accept that the story doesn't want to deliver another adventure with Joel and Ellie, but instead to give you something new, it's much easier to appreciate. Going into my first playthrough, that's what I thought I wanted, more time to explore the relationship between a father and his surrogate daughter. But truth be told, this game would not be nearly as special if it were just that, another adventure with Joel and Ellie. I look at games like Spider-Man 2 and God of War Ragnarok, titles that didn't dare to go too bold, and while they are great, they won't ever really end up on any of my favorite all-time games lists because they did choose to play it safe. They were great sequels, but they felt like more of what we had already seen. With The Last of Us Part 2, yeah, that's not the case. The first game explored this relationship through the lens of what lengths a parent will go through to protect their child. It was a story about love. And this is a story about hate. Watching these characters go down a dark path, demonstrating consequence in the world while offering new perspectives along the way. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and I'm not telling you that you have to like it, but I do think when you open your mind to a new experience, you come to realize just how well acted, how well performed, how well written, and more this title truly is. If you're willing to meet it on its terms, you will get a lot more out of it than you might on a bitter first playthrough, marred by your own hopes and expectations. And I think I'll leave it at that. I really love The Last of Us Part 2, but now I want to tell you what's new here in this remaster. And really, there is no better time to give this title a second chance than right now because of this remaster. You can buy it all over again, or upgrade your PS4 version to a PS5 version for just $10, and I do think that's worth it, especially if you're already on board with the narrative direction and the really fun gameplay sequences. I played through a couple levels again just to take notice of how things have been enhanced in the game. You're going to get the better visuals you'd expect with options for 4K if that's your sort of thing. I really couldn't care less. 1080p has always been good enough, but if maxing out the settings is your thing, you can of course do that here. You can notice more detail, particularly in the lighting work and the use of shadows, but most of the upgrades visually seemed rather marginal, at least to me. So I'm not going to harp on the graphic stuff. There are people out there that can cover it much better than I can, but the reason I'm recommending this remaster is because of the new additions. There's 3 new components that have been introduced that really piqued my interest and I find worthwhile. These would be the inclusion of 3 lost levels, as well as the new roguelike mode, and of course the director commentary on cinematic cutscenes. Surprisingly, the lost levels are what I expected to enjoy the most, but it was these other two factors that felt the most compelling. But let's start with those lost levels. There's 3 of them in total, and each will only take about 10 minutes or so to complete. They were from 3 different parts of the story's timeline, and as Neil Druckmann will explain to you, each of them is left in a pre-alpha state, sometimes feeling unfinished, particularly the Jackson party sequence. That's the first one offered up, and was supposed to make the night that Dina and Ellie share their first kiss a playable level. By the way, all 3 of these lost levels include developer commentary, and it was interesting to hear how the team's goal was to take these murderous mechanics felt through normal gameplay sequences and recontextualize them for this particular level. For example, instead of chucking a brick past a clicker to distract it, you're throwing a ball to knock down all the bottles carnival style. And forget about upgrading your weapons, this workbench, yeah, it's for mixing drinks. It's ideas like this that sow the concept of this level, but ultimately there really isn't too much to glean from it. The next level, the Seattle Sewers, feels like the most complete. This puzzle sequence was to be played through after Ellie is forced into the raging waters after being tackled out of a building by stalkers. Here, the puzzles would come in the form of environmental navigation, having to find ways to overcome the rushing streams of water while also dealing with a bit of claustrophobia. There's even a sequence where Ellie climbs through a really tight tunnel, rife with infestation, only to have a PTSD flashback to the image of Joel's beaten and broken face. It's the closest you'll get to any additional character development in these unfinished levels, which was a bit disappointing. Once again, my expectations may have been a little unaligned, hoping that these levels would be finished up for the remaster, while also contributing maybe some new dialogue or something new for the narrative, but really that isn't the case. And to be clear, I don't think the marketing was promising something more, I just had an image in my head, and that image wasn't what was real. And then the final level takes place after Ellie and Abby's confrontation in the theater. The team was going to leave Dina's fate up in the air for a little bit longer, as you were originally meant to accompany Ellie on a PTSD triggering boar hunt across Jackson's abandoned wildlands. It was alright, but mostly these levels were interesting because of the additional commentary provided by the development team. I played through each of them twice, once without commentary and once with, but honestly, hearing about the design process is what makes them worth playing. The developers go into all these little details and nuances about building levels, and it's kind of like a behind the scenes peek, and it was pretty cool. So yeah, in short, I think that's a great summary for these lost levels. They are a behind the scenes look at game development rather than any groundbreaking new moments for the story or gameplay, and so it ends up being alright. What really captured my attention most though was the new roguelike mode because of its thrilling gameplay sequences paired up with tons of new rewards coming in the forms of cosmetics and new challenges. Any given run in this roguelike mode starts with you selecting a character, either Ellie or Abby at the start, but eventually unlocking the full roster of characters from both sides of the story. Each character has their own strengths and weaknesses. Abby, for example, is proficient in hand-to-hand combat, while Tommy starts with his powerful sniper rifle, but is unable to dodge as a downside. Experimenting with each character was fun and empowers you to play a certain way. And then from there, you go on a run of about 6 missions, culminating with a boss encounter. And as you play, you unlock a few new modes, but mostly you'll find Assault and Hunted. In Assault, you must kill all enemies before they kill you, and in Hunted, you must survive until the timer runs out. There's a few other modes, but even after playing for 5 hours, none of them spawned in for me, which was strange. Regardless, these missions were a lot of fun because of how tense they were. A death meant the whole run was over, and even playing on normal difficulty, I perished a few times. I even had a few close calls where I just barely held on to win, which was really rewarding and thrilling at the same time. It gave me a real rush. Despite repeated locations and enemy types, this mode works best because of the modifiers and the rewards. As you continue to play, new modifiers are constantly introduced to shake things up, whether it's disabling long guns, or applying an unruly photo mode filter to your visuals, or allowing you to heal with every melee kill. These allowed the bite-sized missions to stay enjoyable and entertaining while still being fresh. And each time you return to the safe house, you can spend currency, bolts, and pills to upgrade your gear and character stats. It constantly felt like I was unlocking new options, whether it be new characters to play as, new modifiers, new game modes, or even gambits that grant more rewards after completing risky maneuvers. Now, I'm not saying this mode is the best roguelike ever, no, far from it, but it did deliver an enjoyable experience, one that I could see people, having fun with, maybe 5 to 10 hours worth or so. And really, so much discussion about The Last of Us Part 2 is on the narrative, but this roguelike really allows the combat and scavenging to shine, devoid of any storytelling. It was a great reminder of how solid the gameplay is here, and I think that's for the best. You won't find any character development like you did in God of War Ragnarok's Valhalla DLC, but you'll find a cool setup to experience some really weighty and enjoyable combat in. Out of everything though, I'm surprised to say that the insightful developer commentary was no doubt my favorite part of this remaster. In a game full of moments for player interpretation, whether it be in the form of symbolic gestures or well-made facial animations, everyone's hungry for answers from the source. Poring over many of the game's most impactful cutscenes, searching for answers, or at least more understanding, was really fun. Getting to hear Neil and his team, as well as the actors, talk about their perspectives was really enlightening. The beauty is that each of them is allowed to speak freely, and they all have different interpretations of key moments, and it was awesome to hear that our narrative debates as players were shared by those responsible for forging the game. And you do certainly get a couple juicy nuggets too, like the reveal that originally Ellie was going to kill Abby during the boat scene, but that the change was made to spare her a shred of humanity. The team explains that in those few seconds before Abby would have perished, Ellie probably realized that this wasn't going to bring her the comfort that she was searching for, so why let another person suffer, especially someone who's clearly already suffered enough. And that decision allows Abby to live on, maybe to show up in another sequel, and I think that's cool. Man, wanting to see Abby in another Last of Us game, I really have come a long way since my first playthrough. So yes, the developer commentary, chef's kiss, was a great inclusion, one of the best decisions for this remaster, and it just is a great way to get more information and to get more opinions, and to just indulge yourself more into this world and its characters if you love them. And besides this, there's a couple of other tacked on features like customization options, like, you can play as pretty much any character model throughout the main story once you beat it once, so that's cool, if not a little goofy. And, there's the guitar free play mode if you're into that. Not me, I am not talented musically at all, but if you are, it's there for you. So for me personally, exploring the new lost levels, enjoying some thrilling combat in the roguelike mode, and re-experiencing some of the beautifully crafted storytelling sequences with the additional insight provided by the team is what I enjoyed most about this package. It's an easy recommendation from me, whether you've played the game before or not. My only caveat would be that, it's probably best to have played the first game before this one, but that seems like a no-brainer. Anyway guys, I appreciate you checking out this quick review. I am working hard to finish up Baldur's Gate 3, and I know that video will be pretty lengthy. I imagine that's going to be the next upload, probably sometime in late February or early March, so stay tuned for that. And for new games coming out this year, the first ones I'm going to be looking at are Persona 3 Reload, which is my most anticipated game of the year, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, so get excited for those. Until then, enjoy the games you're playing. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing for more, follow me on Twitter at NopeNapNarp, Join our Discord, the link is below, and as always, guys, have a nice day, and take care.